begin.
Okay. Well, welcome all of you. I'm Sister Margaret Cruzy. I am presently the director here at Our Lady of the Prairie Retreat out in Wheatland, Iowa, which is in the farming community. We're out in the country about 45 minutes from Davenport going north. Our Lady of the Prairie Retreat is owned by the Sisters of Humility, and they have had this since 1999. And I was hired to be the director 4 years ago. And I am here until May because my community has asked me to come back for taking another position for one of our sisters. So I will be leaving here, but we're in transition and trying different things to keep this going as well as we can. So I want to just give you a little background on Our Lady of the Prairie. Our land here is in an area that was at 3 different times in history was covered with glaciers, and the last glacier stopped at this point, so we have lots of hills and valleys. Father Fabula and Sister Joanne Kubrick, who is a humility, they purchased this place back in 1992 and start renovating the old farmhouse to make it into a retreat center. And in 98, Father Fabula developed brain cancer. And so he died that year. So the sisters purchased this from his community, which was the Trappists up by Dubuque. And so they, in 2003, built another building so that we could have more people stay overnight. Here at the Prairie, the first thing that was done was we put prairie grass all the way around the house and put it back into its natural environment. It's been that way now for almost 30 years. And we have developed also a labyrinth in the area. Eagle Scout put the Cosmic Walk, which is the universe story, throughout the Prairie. And in coming into our driveway area, we have pollinator strips, which are wildflowers that attract the bees, the butterflies, and the birds. And then we have some solar panels to help with the electricity. And we're planning to put in another 11.3 whatever it is, I'm not sure what that's called, but doubling what we have anyway. So we have a variety of things like that. We do our own gardening and use that for our meals. So we have organic gardening and flowers and wildflowers all around us. So it's been a wonderful experience just being back out in the country. I'm originally from Iowa. I grew up in southeastern Iowa in a family of 15. And so I grew up on a farm, so I have a lot of experience in just growing things. And I'm definitely my father's daughter because he loves to plant and I do too. So I will be heading back to Milwaukee where the headquarters for my community is in May, and we'll be doing more gardening up there. So that's kind of where we're at here. So I'll turn it over to you, Isa, and you may continue. Or no, Athena.
Yeah, Athena, why don't you, well, I'll just say a few things and then I'll turn it over to you, Athena. So I want to welcome you all here. You know, I wanted to let you know that I spent several very happy weeks at Our Lady of the Prairie in 2017 when my book, Coming to Peace, came out. And the director at that time invited me to come give a series of workshops based on the conflict resolution process that Coming to Peace describes. So I was thrilled when your program director called me in the fall and said, would I be willing to, you know, give some book readings? And I'm like, yes, I will come there. And it's a place that I hold very deep in my heart. So thank you for that beautiful description. It really is a magical place if anyone is looking for a really profound retreat experience. It's really a lovely place. And I want to, thank you all for inviting me again. And I'd like to ask Athena to go ahead and ask everyone who's here to introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and what brought you here to the circle, where we'll be talking about coming to peace. And I'll be reading from my book and taking any questions that you have on the conflict resolution process. Athena.
Hi, everybody. I'm Athena. I'm calling in from the Rocky Mountains in Kremling, Colorado. Though I used to live in Illinois, so I've been in the area where the retreat center is. And it's just great to see all of you. I am helping out with the technology. When Isa's on camera, she's not able to see the screen. She has some sensitivities. So I'm kind of watching. And as we go through tonight's lecture, if you have questions or comments in the chat at any time, you just write that in. And when we get to appropriate times for questions, you can either unmute and ask the question, or I can read that and Isa can answer it. So it's kind of helpful. It's great to see all your faces. And if you're able to keep your videos on, that's fantastic. It helps me keep an eye on everybody to see. And it was great to see the bulldog. I wish I could bring the kitty cat and all the animals that are here with us tonight. My noodle's here too, so they're all welcome. And if you're not able to have your video on, that's fine as well. So I'll just call on you. And like Isa said, if you could tell us where you're calling in from and what drew you to the program. So Jen, let's start with you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jen Maitreya. I'm calling in from Western Massachusetts in the town of South Hadley. And I love this book. I have read it twice, listened to it twice, and a combination of read it and listened to it another time. It's had a profound impact on my life, not only in my work as a school psychologist, my new work as a up-and-coming depth hypnosis practitioner and shamanic counselor, but also personally in my own ability to resolve inner conflict. So I want to hear Isa talk about it every time she talks about it. Thank you, Isa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. How about Kristen?
Hello, I'm here with two dogs that are sleeping and snoozing right now next to me. So I joined the animal party as well as the people party here. I just actually learned about the coming to peace. So this is kind of my first toe in the water of dipping into it. I'm calling in from the Point Reyes area, just north of San Francisco. So, and have participated in a number of classes from the Foundation of Sacred Stream. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen. And Amy.
Hi, I'm calling in from Boulder, Colorado, and I am here because my shamanic depth hypnosis healer, I've been working with her since last year, and she has really made a big transformation in my life. And she recommended that I get in touch with this group, and I have a curiosity about the shamanic healing, and I've read some of Isa's work and also listened to her videos, and I'm very touched and moved by her approach and philosophy, and I'd like to learn more today. My puppy is with me in spirit. I don't have her anymore, but I love all the dogs, so thank you. I think animals teach us how to be present, and they really help us relax and be our best selves. So I welcome all animals. And then I invited my sister on the call because I just love the journey of family together and learning and healing. And I'm so happy to see you, Emily. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And Emily, why don't we go to you next?
Hi, Thanks for having me. I've just started my journey. I've been reading about Buddhism. Amy told me about the book and this evening, and I read about it. And meditation is hard for me. Introspection is hard for me. I usually relax from exercise and reading. So I've been working hard to try other methods, and I think resolving conflict is something that, you know, it's a lifelong process, and I'm really interested in this, and I'm going to be ordering the book as well. So thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. And Todd.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I'll be honest with you, this is a bit of a prospecting event for me. And I apologize that I don't have my camera on, but I am moving around doing things. I'm calling from Florida. I've lived here for about 20 years or so. I have a lot of experience with conflict resolution, but mostly externally facing. So I'm intrigued to hear the conversation tonight and to learn more about what it is that you guys do. And I can't remember the name. I think it was Amy, who's in Point Reyes. I lived in San Francisco for about 10 years and I miss it dearly.
Thanks, Todd. And that is everybody
Okay.
for right now. And if someone else pops on, I'll let you know, Isa, at a break.
Okay, great. And it's great we're recording this because I know there's more people signed up. And I want to thank you all for signing up because this is a fundraiser for Our Lady of the Prairie. So thank you so much for your contributions to their well-being and for your interest in the book. So what I thought I would do is I thought I would read certain passages from the book. And if you have questions, I'll stop and say things every once in a while, but if you have questions that come up as I'm reading, please do put them in the chat, and then we'll definitely record them. And we definitely will focus on that inner coming to peace, that internal conflict resolution that several of you have referred to. And so let's talk about just sort of before I start reading, just talk about the provenance of coming to peace. You know, this is a process that emerged out of my depth hypnosis practice. And depth, not death, DEPTH, hypnosis is a counseling, spiritual counseling method that I developed that helps people come to peace. And the way that we work with the coming to peace processes, which we're going to be talking about, is really helpful in the therapeutic environment where people are often in conflict. And we do work with families and couples and communities in depth hypnosis and applied shamanic counseling. And so this is the method that we work with. And I teach classes in Coming to Peace if you want to learn more about how to work with the processes here at the Sacred Stream, which is a school for consciousness studies in Berkeley, California. And we teach classes in depth hypnosis, in Coming to Peace, in inner coming to peace, in Buddhism, in shamanism, and we're teaching a class in energy medicine this weekend, which is at the heart of all of that. So, there's a lot that Coming to Peace brings into a conflict in terms of providing a container and providing an orientation for people to focus their issues into. So I'm going to talk about this, and just to let you know, this is tried and true in the therapeutic environment. We work with this all the time, and these techniques seem to really offer an alternative to conflict for people. So I'm so happy to share it with you. So I'm going to start with a little bit of reading about what Coming to Peace is, so you have a little bit better idea. This is starting on page 15. Many indigenous cultures have spiritual belief systems and practices that support conflict resolution among their members in a way that fosters equality and understands that as humans, We all share a common and similar set of hopes, needs, and goals. As such, these traditions encourage and nurture each person's ability to connect with this truth of common purpose when they find themselves in conflict. In Africa, Ubuntu is a term that is used to describe the shared purpose, the common goals, and equality that comes from the Bantu language spoken throughout many countries in Central, Southeast, and Southern Africa. It is a uniting force among cultures in these areas and is recognized to have played an important role in the restorative justice processes of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission experienced in South Africa at the end of apartheid. In fact, the South African Constitutional Court stated that Ubuntu is, quote, part of the deep cultural heritage of the majority of the population and suffuses the whole constitutional order. In his article, Race Apologies, University of Hawaii's professor of law and social justice, Eric Yamamoto, further explains the relationship of Ubuntu to restorative justice practices. Restorative justice is reflective of the African notion of Ubuntu, or interconnectedness. Ubuntu is the idea that no one can be healthy when the community is sick. Ubuntu says, I am human only because you are human. If I undermine your humanity, I dehumanize myself. It characterizes justice as community restoration, the rebuilding of the community to include those harmed or formerly excluded. The same egalitarian approach to diplomacy and mediation practiced in traditional African cultures was present in Native American traditions, which was well documented by the early European explorers and ethnographers. The most consistent theme of their reports in the social organization of the Native American tribes of the Eastern North America is one of equality and freedom from social hierarchies. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and other shapers of the United States were strongly influenced by the governments espoused by the 6 tribal groups of the Iroquois League. In fact, in 1988, Congress passed Concurrent Resolution 331, recognizing the influence of the Iroquois League and other Indian nations on the unification of the original 13 colonies into one republic, as well as the United States Constitution. So one thing that I think is really important to remember, I always want to talk about this more, is that the Europeans coming to the North America really did not have any kind of idea about what a democracy was other than in Greece. And that was really not a democracy. That was more of an aristocracy, sort of living in a sort of democratic way with a bunch of slaves, right? So it's, when we say that we got this idea of democracy from Greece, I really question that, because when you look at the governing principles of the Iroquois League, the Iroquois are often called the Haudenosaunee now, and you're looking at the Constitution. It's amazing for many aspects of the Constitution, not all of them, but it is. I think people do not realize how much our way of governance and our way of trying to find a consensus among different groups of people is drawn from the Iroquois League's principles. In his book, Indian Givers, How Native Americans Transformed the World, author Jack Weatherford explains how during conflict resolution ceremonies, the Iroquois did not allow speakers to interrupt each other. And if someone were to raise their voice, a period of silence would be prescribed. Periods of silence were also imposed after each speaker in case they wanted to refine or restate what they had said. This was a radical change from the diplomatic circles of Parliament in England, during which everyone spoke at once and attempted to outshout each other when trying to come to agreement. Europeans considered the Iroquois system of allowing each member an equal voice revolutionary. According to Weatherford, the overall intent of the Iroquois councils was to encourage unity at each step through the informal discussion of an issue among equals. While members of the Iroquois League resolution circles were viewed as equals, they did elect members to facilitate in the process. These leaders were called the pine tree chiefs. The great white pine, with its sheltering branches, is the symbol of peace and unity of the Iroquois League. The leaders not only helped those in conflict remain peaceful as they worked through an issue, they also used ritual to support members in the process. For instance, in their Edge of the Woods ceremony, the Iroquois would use a smoky fire to clean off or clear someone returning from an activity that caused them to act in a way that separated them from their essential nature. Such activities included war, hunting, and other things not peaceful in nature. As such, the Edge of the Woods ceremony was used before peace councils to prepare participants for the proceedings. The use of a facilitator and their supporting rituals can be found in other indigenous traditions. In Hawaii and other parts of the Pacific, in the resolution practice of Ho'oponopono, a mediator called a haku was chosen to facilitate the process. Meaning to make good or to make right in Hawaiian, Ho'oponopono is a healing process that addresses the underlying conflicts at the heart of social disease, political or religious conflict, and even physical disease in individuals. Long ago, a haku was most often a kahuna, a spiritual leader and healer of the tribe. But today, a trusted elder from the group not involved in the conflict is more likely to serve as the facilitator. To assist with ceremonies and other proceedings, kahunas would call upon helping spirits or totems, and after clearing the ceremony space, they would say a prayer to ask for guidance, strength, clarity, and healing. Historically, Ho'oponopono was used to correct imbalances within family systems. In her article, To Set Right, Ho'oponopono, a native Hawaiian way of peacemaking, Hawaiian and indigenous epistemology scholar and practitioner Manu Meyer explained Ho'oponopono's main purpose. Because each family member played an important role in the survival of the family, maintaining harmony was vital to keeping the family alive and well. Ho'oponopono was the means by which that harmony was maintained. In cases where a person was seeking help for physical illness, the kahuna would refrain from addressing the physical aspects of the illness until all aspects of the person's unseen experience was explored. To facilitate this, the kahuna would call a meeting with the person's family and close community members. In this meeting, the kahuna would ask everyone if they were holding any grudges, fears, or judgments toward the person, or if the person had any grudges, fears, or judgments that they were holding toward the community members. Every person affected by the conflict was given an opportunity to express their view without interruption in the resolution process of Ho'oponopono, as crosstalk was not permitted. Participants would go around the circle, peeling back the issue layer by layer. If someone was disrespectful or became heated in any way, again, periods of silence called ho'omalu were prescribed for all parties. Ho'omalu means to bring under the care and protection of. The period of silence gave participants time to reconnect with the spirit of truth and reflect on their experience before re-engaging with the process. So you're going to see as we go further into the book how these roots from these different indigenous societies and also from Buddhism, I don't want to read the whole book, bring together, are brought together and applied in the modern context. And this is typical of all of the work that we do here at the Sacred Stream, where we maintaining complete respect for traditional ways of working, also bring those ways in the essential aspects of those ways of working into the modern environment and apply them in a way that modern people can access them. And so that's a lot of what the whole coming to peace process is. It is It is making something that is ancient and in its wisdom and its nature, and making it available to modern people. So I'd like to, does anyone have any questions about where we've been so far with these descriptions of the roots of coming to peace?
I don't have any questions in the chat right now.
Okay, I will continue on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to chapter 3 on page 29, and I'm going to outline the elements of coming to peace. These are the agreements that people agree to as they sit down in the conflict resolution circle, and I'm going to describe what those conflict resolution circles look like with coming to peace in just a moment. But first, I want to just bring forward the qualities that each person agrees to strive to maintain or focus on as they are engaging in a conflict resolution process. So equality is the first principle. And this means that each person will be given equal time to speak, and every person's experience will be considered of equal value to the experience of every other member of the group. And so this is very important, this issue of equality, because one of the things that you find in conflict is that there's often a kind of a hierarchy where there's someone or some people who find themselves or feel themselves to be exempt from the requirements that others in the group may have, and they may, and others may feel that same way too, and they may hesitate to challenge, for instance, a boss who is out of integrity, or a parent who is acting with cruelty, or a grandparent who is in the throes of addiction and causing problems in the rest of the family. So these kinds of hierarchies that are social in nature are flattened with the coming to peace process, which is very important because it allows members of the community or the family who normally don't have as strong a voice, perhaps as others, to have an equal voice. I know I say this in the book. I remember I was working with a family with a teenager who was really having trouble just being a teenager and being in that family. And I remember at one point in the conflict resolution process, he goes, "This is great. This is the first time I haven't been told to shut up and go to my room." It was, I mean, he was saying it in a less than peaceful way, but I think it was a very important point that he was making, right? And then mutual respect is another element. Each person strives to treat other participants and the practitioner with respect. This means not interrupting someone when they are speaking and not making negative comments or characterizations. And for those of you that have ever been in an argument, you know that that whole thing of making a negative comment or characterization is something that keeps the crisis going, that keeps the conflict going. So important to maintain mutual respect. Honesty. Each person strives to tell the truth of their experience and be forthcoming about their actions. And this points to something that's talked to at length within the book about personal responsibility and how important it is for each person to take personal responsibility. And being honest is the first step there. Commitment to personal responsibility is the next. And so each person remains fully accountable for their actions and agrees to seriously consider the effects those actions may have had on others. Compassion. Each person strives to hold a compassionate space for themselves and other members of the group. Tolerance. Each person agrees to practice tolerance even when they do not agree with what is being presented to other members of the group. Patience. Each person agrees to practice patience even when they feel upset by what is being presented by other members of the group. And you'll see I'm going to be talking about the way we work with the talking stick or a talking stone, where only the person who's speaking the only person who can speak is the one who's holding the talking stick or the talking stone. And I have found myself when I've engaged, when I've been in conflict with people, that that is probably the most helpful aspect, because you have to wait until it's your turn to talk. And because you want to, I don't know about you, but with me, if I'm in conflict with someone, I might, like they're saying something that I don't agree with, I'm, and you have to stay quiet. And so then by the time it comes around to you, you have been able to think a little bit and been able to put, for me, put some better words other than to the issue. So I find that really, really helpful, the patience. I think that's my main thing to develop in this lifetime anyway. I don't know about you all, how you do with that, but this process really helps you develop patience. Willingness to engage. Each person agrees to participate in the process even when things become difficult or when they do not like what's being brought forth in the session. And this is really helpful because, one of the things that people will do when they find that they're not getting their way in an argument is they will, slam doors and leave. And you can't do that. You have to stay. And that's that. And your presence is fundamental to being be able to resolve issues. And then the cultivation of inner wisdom. Each person agrees to do their best to attune to the inner wisdom by using the methods described below, which I go into, connecting to inner wisdom and setting intention, etc., and other practices that they have studied. So you can see these principles are designed to cut through arguing, pretty much arguing. Like, it's very hard to argue when you have these principles set in place. And as I was reading these, I was thinking about my childhood, which I grew up pretty much in a constant state. Everyone around me was pretty much constantly arguing. And I think it's so interesting that the first, I've written a lot of different things and I've focused on a lot of different processes. And I think it's really interesting that, how much my own childhood experience of that arguing really kind of focused me on the importance of peace. And just how disruptive arguing is and how important it is to get a grip on, a container, so that people who are dedicated to war or dedicated to arguing are asked or assisted with putting down their weapons by agreeing to these principles. And so I have found, these principles are really helpful in stopping that forward momentum that you get when people are in conflict and arguing all the time, right? So then I'd like to move to the next part of coming to peace, which I referred to a couple of times, which is giving you the actual practice. What does it look like? What does a coming to peace circle look like? And again, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and I'll take them in just a minute. So the steps of coming to peace help everyone stay on the path to peace. They are designed to create equality among participants and give them the space and time needed to share their experience truthfully. 1, the participants and practitioners sit in a circle. 2, the practitioner leads a guided meditation for connecting with inner wisdom. 3, each person states their intention for participating in the process. 4, a talking stick or other object is passed around the circle to indicate whose turn it is to speak. Upon receiving the stick, each person has the opportunity to speak or pass the stick. Only one person can speak at a time, and there's no crosstalk allowed. 5, the practitioner manages the space and makes sure the participants remain respectful and adhere to the rules. The practitioner may also point to potential paths for participants to explore to keep them on track. 6, if an individual fails to maintain respect for others or himself, themselves, the practitioner asks them to take a break to reconnect with their inner guidance before re-entering the conversation. 7, the process continues until the stated time ends, typically an hour. If a resolution has not been reached, another session is scheduled for a later date. 8, the practitioner may assign participants with a subject for further inner reflection to engage in between sessions. So this is, so we have the principles, creating the container, and then we have these practices also creating the container. And the reason that you need a container in doing conflict resolution is because conflict is very volatile. And if you don't have a kind of structure and a kind of set of agreements to be able to bring forward the conflict, then the roots of the conflict can never be known. And one of the things that I have seen again and again and again with these processes of coming to peace is that they work. And one of the reasons why they work is because they give the time and space for the roots of the conflict to reveal themselves. Because one of the things that you see with conflict is that, especially when people are in active disagreements all the time, often the reason why they originally started disagreeing gets lost. And definitely people lose track of the fact that they're just trying to be happy by arguing, and that and that the other person is also just trying to get to a place where they can be happy by arguing. I mean, this is not true of all people, but most people are just trying to figure out how to make themselves feel better. And they just don't understand how to truly do that. And by having because it becomes very evident very quickly that arguing for your point doesn't make you happy, and it doesn't make the other person happy. So by creating a kind of container for everyone to be able to slow down and try to understand why they're arguing, and try to slow down and try to understand why the other person is arguing, things do get better. And I'd like to read you an example where this process is definitely at work in a family that came to me for help, trying to resolve a really a very heated ongoing conflict between a stepdaughter and her stepfather. But I just wanted to see if anyone has any questions so far.
I don't see anything in the chat.
All right, thank you. All right, so this family came to me. I'm basically going to take you around the circle as if we were sitting in the circle with these 5 people, and watching the stick or the rock go around. And as people in this family are trying to resolve the issues that are coming up between one of the daughters and the stepfather. So one of the things that we always do in coming to peace is we connect with what we call the spirit of truth, or the inner guidance, who has our best and highest good as its sole intent. And this is a process it's like a guided meditation that helps people go inward, and it gives them more inner resources for being able to have that patience and that tolerance that's needed to bring conflict to resolution. And when you see both within the Iroquois League and within Ho'oponopono for sure, you have this silence that needs to be maintained. It's almost like a timeout if a person has gotten heated or started calling someone names or refusing to participate. During that silence, they are asked to return to connect with their inner guidance, that spirit of truth within them that helps them know their own truth. And that is present. Everyone has that connection before the process of conflict resolution begins. And so that was the case with this family. They had all met a form of inner guidance that took form, that had complete meaning, complete personal meaning to them, not prescribed in any way. And they were all connected with this source of wisdom as they entered into the conflict resolution. So the practitioner says, let's take a moment to focus inward and connect with the inner guidance that you have just encountered. What are we here to work on today? Veronica says, I am here because my heart is broken because the people I love hurt each other and me. Veronica is the mother of the girls. And Joel, who is the stepdad, says, I am here because we are having a problem with anger. I am having a problem with anger. A personal responsibility, right? Erica, so Erica, Ashley, and Megan are the girls here. Erica says, I'm here because I was told I had to be here. Ashley says, I'm here because Joel is a jerk. And Megan says, Mom and Dad brought me here. The practitioner says, can everyone offer a response to the reasons everyone has mentioned for being here? Veronica says, I agree that there's a problem with anger. I'm glad Erica agreed to be here and that Megan is here too. I'm hoping Ashley can begin to see her stepfather in a new way. Joel says, I'm sorry to hear that this anger is causing so much heartache for Veronica, and I appreciate Erica and Megan being here. I just want to find a new way to talk to Ashley so she doesn't think I'm a jerk. Erica says, I'm hoping this helps Mom. I'm tired of hearing Ashley always talk trash about Joel. I want something to change. Ashley says, so you have to remember now the rock is going around in the circle. I use a talking rock, not a talking stick. And so they're each taking the rock and they're each, having connected with inner guidance, they're each saying their truth. They're each taking responsibility. They're seeing everyone as equal. They're all being patient and tolerant. And they're all trying to take personal responsibility as they are talking about this conflict that they're dealing with. Megan passes the talking stick, which you can do if you have nothing to say, you can pass it. Veronica says, we do care about everyone, and that's why we're here. Joel says, what makes you think I'm a jerk? Erica passes the stick. Ashley says, you can tell me what to do. You always tell me what to do. You used to be really nice when you were coaching softball. Now it's, you didn't do that right, and you didn't do this right. You aren't my father. Who are you to tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong? Megan and Veronica both pass the stick. They don't say anything. Joel says, I'm just trying to help you learn the game. I'm trying to help. Erica passes the stick, and Ashley says, you don't help anything. You're always in my face yelling at me and telling me what to do. Megan and Veronica again pass the stick, and Joel says, I'm just trying to help you learn. I know I get frustrated sometimes when I feel like you aren't listening. I'm just trying to help fill in for your dad. Erica says, I don't think it's possible to fill in for Dad. Ashley says, you are not my dad. Veronica, why do you think it's not possible? Why don't you think it's possible to fill in for Dad? Megan passes the talking stick. Joel says, yes, I would like to know that as well. Erica says, because Dad's a loser. He never shows up. He never does anything. He's always says he's going to do something and then he doesn't. There's no making up for that. Only he can make up for that, and he never does. Ashley starts to cry. Megan passes the stick. Veronica says, I don't know what to do. Joel says, I know he doesn't show up. That's why I try to show up double time. I'm trying to help fix that problem, but maybe my trying to make everything right is the wrong thing. Erica says, no, you can't make it right. Only he can. Ashley says, I didn't know you were trying to make things right for us because Dad doesn't show up. It just seems like you're always around and not giving me any space to make my own choices. Megan and Veronica pass the talking stick. Joel says, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you space. I worry that you're going to feel bad when your dad says he's going to show up and he doesn't. I'm sorry I yell at you when you're not getting what I'm trying to show you. I think I must be mad at him and I'm yelling at you. I'm trying to protect you from the loss of him, but I'm not doing a very good job. Erica says, thanks for trying. Ashley says, I didn't know you were mad at Dad. I think I'm mad at him too. So you see, there's a similar root to the conflict, and that's not at all uncommon, that two people in conflict have a similar reason for it, but an opposite response. Megan passes the stick and Veronica says, it seems like you're both mad at Dad and taking it out on each other. Joel says, I am so sorry. I will try to work on this. I think I've been mad at myself too, because I can't make everything right for you guys. And I think I've been taking that anger out on you. I'm really sorry. Erica says, that sounds right. Ashley says, I think it sucks that Dad doesn't show up. Megan passes the talking stick. Veronica says, I know it's hard. Joel says, let's work on this between us and try to make our family happier. Erica says, I think we should talk to Dad about the way that he doesn't show up for us. Ashley says, I'm sorry, I called you a jerk. So that argument, which had been raging for about 6 months, pretty much nonstop, was resolved in about 45 minutes. Just by having the right container, right? And people being willing to participate in it, right? Not every coming to peace circle is this, quick, but I, it was very poignant, even now when I read it, I just feel how much pain people get in because they don't know how, they don't know why they're arguing, and they don't know how to bring the argument to an end. And the coming to peace process really helps them with that. Any questions so far before we head into the one last reading we have here in the last part of the book?
There is a question. Amy asks, how do you lead people to find their inner guide?
So this is a meditation process. And so everyone is, everyone who's participating is guided to focus inward and really find themselves moving into an altered state of awareness through the suggestions that I offer or the practitioner offers. And as the person is going inward, focusing on their breath, feeling the surface under them, noticing where their breath is going, they get more and more internally focused. And then they're able to, with suggestions, they're asked to go to a place that has meaning to them, that they have been to internally, and connect with an aspect of that place that has been helpful to them. And then to ask the question of that aspect. It might be, a sun or a dolphin or a tree, and ask if that, or it might be an angel or, a light. It could be, take any form. And then the person asks that aspect of the place if it would be willing to guide them. And then I help people, or the practitioner helps people come out, and we count them back into ordinary awareness. So it's a type of meditation that people are guided through. And I know some of you had said that you were having trouble with meditation, and one of the things about meditation that can be hard is that it's hard sometimes to do it yourself alone. And so it's helpful to have a guided meditation at the beginning to help connect in with this aspects of yourself that are there all the time, but that you can't perceive because you're working in what we call conscious mind reality. where we're focused outward and we lose track of what is going on inside of us. And by altering the state of awareness with meditation, you can broaden your ability to see inside of yourself. And so with the guided meditation, you look within yourself to see what guidance is there, but you haven't been able to perceive because you've been so focused outward. And then that whole process also helps people begin to look inward to understand the roots of their conflicts as well. Any other question?
Amy asks, in follow-up to that, does Sacred Stream offer guided meditations?
It's pretty much all we do. Yeah, actually, that particular meditation that I'm talking about is adapted on the website. It's called Finding Your Spirit Guide, and it's in the store, I think. But we use meditation for many different ways of teaching, or many different helping people understand many different aspects about themselves. And we work with the altered state of awareness extensively. We work with hypnosis to help people gently go into an altered state of awareness so that they can begin again to perceive within themselves aspects of their experience that they again cannot see or understand very well when they're so focused outward. And then we also work with dreams quite a bit, because dreams is another way of understanding this larger part of the self that is often there, but not seen unless you're dreaming, right? So we listen to dreams extensively and work with them in the depth hypnosis and applied shamanic counseling process. And then we also work with something called the shamanic journey, which is a method of changing your awareness through repetitive sound. And there you are working actively to connect with inner guidance that then you ask questions of and begin to become an apprentice to, essentially. And this is very therapeutic. And so we work with meditation also to help. We teach classes in applied Buddhist psychology, and we teach different ways of meditating, working with the breath, and then working with strong inner focus to go inward, to examine different aspects of our experience, again, that we might not be able to understand so deeply without a bit of meditative focus. So yeah, we kind of, when I was first developing this process, I wanted to call the Sacred Stream just for a minute, I wanted to call it the Center for Altered States, because we work so much with altered states. But everyone pointed out to me that most people, when they think of altered states, they think of drugs. So it wasn't a go for a name. But we do work with altered states without drugs. Yeah.
And Emily has a question, Isa.
Yes.
Hi, Isa. I thought that the one of the qualities for the bucket of equality, it really struck me, because if I think back to childhood and some of the things Amy and I have been talking about recently, me as the oldest child, I didn't realize at the time that the way I was behaving was demonstrating inequality. And so that resulted in some conflicts that wouldn't have been there if there'd been an equality amongst the siblings. And if I'd known better, and I thought, okay, if I could go back and do that over again, that would be pretty, I would do things differently. So I was wondering, when you meet with people, do you ever go back and have people revisit a circumstance and go around the room and then have the conflict revised based on the qualities that we would now know should have been there to begin with? That wasn't very artfully stated,
No,
but
no, I see what you're trying, I think I see where you're trying to go. Yeah, so the way that that would happen is, so for instance, whenever you're doing a coming to peace circle, you all have a reason. So the reason here was for because the family couldn't cope with the arguing between the stepdad and the daughter, and there needed to be a resolution. So that was the reason, right? So in this case, with that circle, the reason would be to sit down and try to understand the effect of the unequal distribution of power in the family when you were children. And so then what you would do is you would have each member, so you do it from today's perspective, because in coming to peace, we're working in present time. There are lots of other ways of working, but let's just stay with the coming to peace. So each person would state, this is my experience of the inequality in our family. And the next person would say, this is my experience. And the next would say, this is my experience. This is the effect. Next one would say, this is the effect that it had on me. Everyone would state their experience of the reason for being here. And then in the next round, everyone would state, as you saw that happened here, everyone would state their response to what other people have said. And then you go from there where people will continue having responses and having discussions, and people may say they're sorry. People may say, this is why I can't accept your apology. And then they may say, well, what else do I need to do? And so then you just go around until there is a sense of resolution. And maybe, in the first session that doesn't happen, but then you get to a place where you stop and everyone is given some homework to think about how they can step into a resolution of the conflict. And in the book, there's a whole chapter on forgiveness and what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the nature of forgiveness, and forgiveness is sometimes what's needed, and sometimes it's simply that people just need to be heard or seen. And often, and what you're getting ready to see right now, is that people have their own inner work that needs to be done in order to be able to bring peace to the conflict. So let me show you that in order to help them stop acting the way that they've been acting in the external conflict, they have to understand their own internal conflict better. So and that's almost always part of a coming to peace process. So let me show you how that looks. Okay, I'm going to read the next piece, and then if you have further questions, we can go there. So this is page 64. So Joel did just that. The stepfather, he realized that he really did need to look at his anger and the sources of his anger. And so he came in for an individual session, and he came in for a process called inner coming to peace. And this is one of the altered state processes that we work with in depth hypnosis, where a person is helped to go into an altered state of awareness. And again, they connect with their inner guidance, but then they look at what is the conflict within myself that is causing me to be in conflict with the people around me. And so Joel had identified that, let's see, Joel's wish to improve his relationship with Ashley drove him to want to learn more about his inner process and how it might have been prompting the contentious interactions between them. Using inner coming to peace methods, Joel explored his relationship with anger further. In these sessions, he uncovered a split within himself, related to the way he took on responsibility. One part of him sought out responsibility. The other part was angry at having to take responsibility. So he had two parts within himself that were in conflict with one another, that was driving the internal conflict. And that's not at all uncommon. So here, I'll give you the inner coming to peace transcript here. So Joel connected with his guide, the part of himself that helps him know his truth. And then he continued in meditation to identify two parts of himself that were at odds over at responsibility. So he's bringing these two parts into better view by finding them in his body, where we do a body scan and we ask, what do you feel in your body as you are thinking about, for instance, the part of you that's angry at taking responsibility? And there's almost always some kind of physical sensation. And then you breathe, you have the person breathe into that place. And as you're breathing into that place, you are asking, is there any kind of color or temperature or form that this sensation might take? And then you get an image. Then that part of yourself that is angry comes into view much better, right? Instead of just being angry, you can say, oh, here's the part of myself that's angry. And then the part of yourself and then we do the same thing with the other part, which was the part that sought to take responsibility. And so what Joel identified one part as a soldier that is located in the back of his head, and another as a red ball in his stomach. So the soldier is the one that seeks to take on responsibility, and the red ball is the one that doesn't want to do that and is angry about having to take responsibility. So the practitioner says, so he's in an altered state and I'm guiding him. And so the practitioner says, I'd like each of you, the red ball and the soldier, to state your position on responsibility. The soldier says, it is important to take responsibility. You have to do your duty. You have to protect the weak. The red ball says, I am sick of responsibility. Give me a break. The practitioner says, and how do each of you respond to the other's position regarding relationship? The soldier says, you are irresponsible. You don't have what it takes. The red ball says, you are just a jerk, Boy Scout. Every damsel in distress that comes your way tools you around. Practitioner Joel, can you ask what the guide has to say about this situation? So the guide is that part of the self that knows the truth. And that was me gently putting him in ho'omalu, giving him a timeout because this part was having trouble being nice. The guide said, I think it would be helpful for you both to think a moment about the effect your words are having on each other, right? So there was that silence that we've talked about. And then the red ball says, okay, I'm sorry. I just think you don't consider what you're doing. You're just rushing into burning houses without thinking about how the fire got started. The soldier says, you have to take care of the problem. You can think about how it got started later. The red ball says, I disagree. You need to think about how things happen. You just rush in and you always get burned. The soldier says, it doesn't matter what happens to me. The red ball says, yeah, it does, because what happens to you happens to me. The soldier says, what are you talking about? The red ball says, you are so busy going around saving every cat up a tree that you don't think about taking care of me, of us. You are overweight, you're still smoking, and you don't exercise. How do you think that affects me when I'm trying to take responsibility for our health? You think I don't take responsibility, you need to look twice. Soldier says, oh. The red ball says, yeah, oh. And there's a silence. The soldier says, okay, I see what you mean, but I have to make things better. I have to protect the weak. The red ball says, if I hear that one more time, I'm going to puke. Protect the weak. Think about protecting us. The soldier says, oh. The red ball says, yeah, oh. And there's silence. The soldier says, I think I just don't know how to stop smoking. And whenever I try, you are not cooperating. The red ball says, that might be true. I think I don't cooperate with you on anything anymore because your schemes are so stupid. I don't even pay attention to what you want anymore. I think that's true. I have to admit that. The soldier says, well, maybe you need to listen to me sometimes. And the red ball says, well, maybe you need to listen to me sometimes. And the soldier says, okay. And the red ball says, well, okay. And do me a favor. Take a look at why you always have to save everyone except yourself. Okay, well, that was kind of a big thing, right? You know, where he's, instead of being angry, like he's sitting there trying to help. One part of him is trying to help, and the other part's like taking pot shots at him. And so that increases frustration. And then so he, tries to help even more. And so he's pushing out onto Ashley, like, you got to do this right. I'm trying to make it better for you. It has to be better for you. And it's not getting better for you. And so she's like, get away from me, and then the soldiers like, but this has to work. And the red ball's going, well, this is a pile of stuff. I don't want to participate in this. You're a jerk. And that makes the soldier even more upset. And so then it externalizes the upset into frustration. He's not making things better. He's not making it better for Ashley, whose father is dropping out. He's not being the father that he wants to be for her, because he's got too much going on inside of him that is frustrated at not being able to make things better. And then he's got this other part of him that's taking pot shots at him as he's trying to do that, right? So he's got so much going on that his voice elevates externally, and they lose their ability he loses his ability to be effective in the way that he wants to be. So by resolving the relationship between these two parts, he's going to stop trying to save Ashley. He's going to think more about what he needs to do to take care of himself in the situation, and things are going to become quieter. So you can see the complementary nature between the inner coming to peace process and the outer coming to peace process. They work in tandem with one another. So, anyone have any questions?
I don't see any right now, but a lot of nodding heads as you were going through that example.
I have to say, this process really emerged in the clinical setting. It became, it like all of the work that we teach at the Sacred Stream. I feel like I was taught it, or it was given to me as I was working with other people. And it was really just a matter of slowing it down, writing it down, working with it so I could teach it to other people. And that has been a really important thing for me to be able to do, to be able to teach these methods to other people. There was a woman who came to a class recently, a shamanic journey-in class, and she said that a friend of hers had given her the book about 3 years ago when she was going through a divorce. And she said she had read it probably 5 or 6 times, and that it had helped her get through the divorce. And it was a contentious divorce, so the issues around conflict were really important. And I'm teaching, so, but I wanted to burst into tears because it was so wonderful to know that this person who I didn't know had been so helped by the book, and had been so that it had been sort of her guide through the hardest time of her life, and I think, that was just so rewarding, just to know that I have explained it well enough that someone could key into it and pick it up and work with it, and to think about, given everything that's happening in the world today, so much argument, so much conflict, so much polarization, to have something like the book Coming to Peace here, reminding us that it is possible to come to peace, that we can find common ground, that we have the tools to do that. And we really just have to be willing to develop within ourselves the desire for peace. And that's my great desire for everyone. So I want to thank you all for being here this evening to talk about this book and to talk about the resolution of conflict in these times of conflict, to be able to point to new possibility and to give hope and sustenance that it is possible to come through argument. Again, I'm writing the book. I'm writing 2 books right now. One is finished and one level of editing, and it's on depth hypnosis, and the other one is on applied shamanic counseling or applied shamanism. And the person who's helping me, my editor, who's very, very helpful. She said, why are you writing this book? That was what she wanted to know. Why are you writing this? And it's the same reason that I wrote this book. It's like so that people can find peace. So that and I really know why is peace so important to me? Because I lived with so much war. I've lived with so much war in my life, and I know that it's not a good thing. And I think we've all lost track of the fact that war is not a good thing in our personal lives and in our collective. And I think that the more of us that can find our own way to inner peace, and it's again so rewarding to me to know that people could use these tools to find that peace within them so that they can work with others to find that peace. I do think that that's the way we change the world. And I do think it's really important for people who are lost in conflict or who feel they're in intractable arguments, as so many people feel they are today, to know that you can come out of it. And the reason that I'm talking about my own experience with so much argument and conflict is because I want people to know. I mean, this is what my editor is like making me say, like I usually don't talk about myself. I don't like to talk about myself too much. And it's like she's saying, you have to demonstrate that you got through this, that you found your way through these difficult times, and that other people can too. By there's lots of different ways. I'm not saying this is the only way, but I really, that is my message, is that it is possible to find hope. It is possible to find peace, and it is possible to come to resolution. And we just need to listen and follow. And here's a method to follow, and we can follow it. So hopefully that was helpful. And if there's any last questions or comment.
I think I see a few people typing. And may I ask a question, Isa?
Sure.
In conflict in relationship, my partner and I had a little kitchen argument on Saturday, and we're both very actively working on ourselves, as demonstrated with the stepfather in your example. But yet conflict happens, and here we are both with the intention of being in a loving, peaceful, supportive, and even spiritually supportive relationship. And it just always is so fascinating to me. And in the moment, we didn't have our talking stick. We didn't have our practitioner there to hold the space. And I was in the same moment that I was in it, there was this part of me that was observing and trying to apply the coming to peace principles. So I wondered if you could talk on, in those moments when you're not with the practitioner yet, you're not, it's just happening in real life. What are those ways to apply those guidelines you offered tonight?
Well, the best thing in that situation, well, first of all, it's great. And first of all, one thing is it's okay that conflict arises. I think that people who are trying to be spiritual feel like there's something wrong with them. if they're in conflict. Conflict is natural. Conflict is part of learning, and it's something to be resolved. It's not necessarily something to be avoided. And almost always conflict points to something important. You know, one of the tenets in my book that I talk about is that the path to peace is often through conflict. So I think that's the first thing, not to think that something wrong is happening because you're in conflict. You haven't been bad, you know. And so, you know, so here's conflict. And the second thing, you know, I know for me, what helps is to get quiet, do a ho'omalu, do a timeout, and sit down and try to figure out why I'm arguing and what am I arguing about, and then go from there. That giving yourself that break helps. There you go.
That's good. Yeah, the breaks are, yeah, that the
Kind
silence,
of key.
very,
Kind of key.
very
Key.
powerful.
Key. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. There is a comment, and I'll read your comment first, Jen, and then you can ask your question. Jen says, I have personally experienced the benefit of this method in my own life, and I thank you very much for this work.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she has a question. Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about, personally, I am nearing the end of going through a divorce that I did not expect. And it's been interesting to try to deal with the conflict when the other person won't communicate at all.
Okay, then you can't do coming to peace with them. You can't come to peace with someone who's dedicated to war.
Right.
So he's not, he or she is not participating, right? There's nothing you can do, which is why the inner coming to peace work is so important. Because whatever you're trying to work out with him is there's probably some roots of it going on within you. And so can, and all at a minimum, the response to him not participating, right, is something that you can work on. Right.
Oh yeah, it's been huge, like identifying the outer conflict, really sourcing within myself, but there's still a part that's like, I'm never going to, have that peace with him.
Well, you may not have it with him, but you can have it within yourself.
That's what I'm finding. Yes,
right,
but still this arises sometimes. And, it's like, what do you do with that?
Well, you have to allow people to be where they are, right? And you have to accept your own powerlessness in getting people to be where you want them to be, right?
Yes.
So, and you have to accept that peace is not possible. I mean, between you and the way that you had wished, but that peace is possible once you deal with all your reactivity of him not participating, not being able to come to peace, not like I don't know what the feelings are, but disappointment or sadness, or I don't know what they are at not being able to create, a life after marriage that is harmonious, and sometimes it's just not possible. People don't want to make peace. They don't want to participate, and you can't. And then you really just have to deal with all of your own internal stuff and let them be wherever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I know you
That's
know.
what I've been
Calling
doing.
me to remind you.
Right. It's okay. I love hearing it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
Amy just offered a thank you to you, saying your shamanic depth hypnosis helped me gain peace post-divorce.
I'm so glad. That's really nice to know. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Sister Margaret, so much for making this happen. And thanks to Lori and to your social media team and doing all you did to make this happen. And thank you so much for taking care of Our Lady of the Prairie Retreat Center and taking care of the land. And wishing you and everyone here all the best.
And I do too. And have a good night.
Thank you.